Adolf Loos's Villa Muller, realized in 1930, was designed as a residence for Dr. František Muller and his family, consisting of his wife and two children. It is situated in Prague, Czech Republic, and was one of Loos's later works said to be an almost perfect manifestation of his idea of a room plan. Literally translated, room plan. The structure is majorly composed of brick and concrete. However, the interiors are vibrant due to the use of materials like green Sapolino marble, travertine stone, tiles, dark and light mahogany, etc. Adolf Loos was born on the 10th of December 1870 in the Czech Republic. Loos grew up in his father's stone cutting and sculpting workshop. He was inspired by the World Exposition held in Chicago and Louis Sullivan's skyscrapers and philosophy of form follows function. Loos pursued his architectural career after returning from America. He wrote consistently throughout his life, publishing countless articles, one of them being Ornament and Crime, published in 1910. The article was preceded by the coming together of artists and architects leading the Vienna Secession. He called out people, including Otto Wagner, for their primitive and degenerate use of ornament. A wave of rising modernist ideals followed the release of Loos's article. Contemporaries like Mies van der Rohe and Le Corbusier gained traction for their unique realizations. For instance, Loos's concept of Rome plan developed independently and in contrast to Corbusier's plan libre. The coming together of rooms on various floors can be clearly observed in Villa Muller. Various rooms are brought together through circulation running across the height of the villa. These spaces are created through the division of linear floor plates into levels in order to achieve varying volumetric requirements according to their function and experience. Programmatic spaces like the service spaces occupy the lower level of the house and can be accessed through the service staircase. On the same floor exists the garden, a level below the main entrance. The garden would act as a room without a roof and act as any other room in the coming together of the room plan. The hall, dining room, study, and the boudoir form the main level of the house and are connected to each other visually and through circulation. The main living floor is on the third level, consisting of the master bedroom, dressing rooms, children's room, guest room, and the servants' room. The floor on top leads to the summer dining room, photography room, and the terrace. Hence, the house programmatically contains three types of circulation systems: the main circulation, used by the owner and family, the service staircase, and the service corridor at the lower level. The circulation becomes an essential element in ROM plan in order to effectively tie the unique spaces together. However, Lowe's fails to articulate it well and fails to consider connecting various elements on the site. For instance, the private garden on the site gets completely overlooked despite being landscaped. One has to travel all the way, exiting the house to access the garden. This leads to the introversion of the house. In fact, in the manifestation of the ROM plan, the circulation also creates awkward niches and corridors in order to connect varying volumes. For instance, the spaces below the staircase that connects boudoir to hall and the corridor alongside the garage. Furthermore, taking a closer look at the floor that meets the garden, one can easily make the harsh separation in the plan. None of the spaces hold the slightest possibility of responding or opening up to the garden. In the north, the unique possibility of reaching the garden has also been shut off due to the presence of storage rooms and garage. One loses sight of the room at the entrance and doesn't reunite with the view until having reached the balcony in the hall or the dining area. In fact, the facade in the east fails to open up to the garden entirely. The protrusion of the dining area shadows the spaces below. Spaces like the master bedroom that occupy the eastern facade but don't open up to it render themselves dimly lit and make them unpleasant to live in. In addition, in terms of siting the house, Lowe's deals with the northward slope of the site and hill very poorly, completely failing to take in light from the direction in which it's abundant and desired, that is, the south and west. The facades responding to these directions are completely flat except for the fenestrations. The south face of the site holds service chambers like the staircase and kitchen. It attempts a disconnect from the rest of the house and also holds spaces like the study, which, due to Loss's sighting, receive minimum sunlight. an obvious incompatibility with its function. It also aligns the washroom windows with the house across a narrow street away. The westward facades hold the spaces like the cloakroom, the boudoir, the servants' room, guest room, and the man's dressing room, and faces the same issue with the flat facade. Since the spaces like the men's dressing room and boudoir are primarily used earlier in the day, their presence, along with the garages, seem counterintuitive to the climatic requirements. Taking a closer look at the northern facade, one definitely questions the orientation of the balcony spaces. In the context of Europe, small pockets of outdoor spaces celebrate the sun and welcome it in. Providing balconies and terraces on the north, the direction with the least amount of sunlight, makes little sense. Moreover, it leads to an even more intense introversion of the house. Loos's obsession with the flatness in his facades is fueled even more by his dislike of ornament. However, he fails to realize the shortcoming of subtraction of articulations on facade without providing an alternative. In order to fully understand what he was criticizing and subtracting, we might need to draw direct comparisons. Loos was very critical of Otto Wagner's Art Nouveau inspired work. One can clearly see the amount of ornamentation in Wagner's metro station. Loos points out the degeneration of ornamentation in Wagner's overly articulated and blind form following metro station artwork. However, in a classical building, the elements in the facade help with the process of weathering. For example, various moldings cover the vulnerable joining of elements. The cornices act as gutters and guide water away from the surface of the building. Sloping and overhanging roofs dispose of rainwater in the distance, protecting the wall. The pediments on top of openings protect the wood and stucco around it. Presence of plinth or rustication prevents dampness from ground to reach the structure, and etc. Lowe's fails to realize this and provide alternatives. No encasement of the window would lead to cracking, stucco, and rotting of wood. Providing no breaking elements all over the facade leads to uneven staining and easy formation of mold. The absence of a plinth and providing a brick foundation proves to be a problem for environments that experience frost lines and permafrosts. The brick absorbs the water, and when the water freezes over and expands, they crack, making them weaker. He also fails to provide a thermal break in the slab between the main living floor and the outdoor spaces like balconies. This leads to poor insulation and higher risk of mold formation. The ivy, growing over some parts of the north facade and almost the entirety of east facade, makes the spaces inside damp and weaken the wall due to the penetrating roots and parasitic insects. Thinner elements, like the parapet walls, also have ivy growing over them, which might lead to them falling over. To conclude, Lowe's fails to provide an alternative to ornamentation on the building facades and hence fails to provide a solution to its weathering. A brief look at the various floor plans also suggests some unsuitable adjacencies. The connection of the master bedroom, the dressing room, and the washrooms. For example, the lady would have to travel the length of the room to reach her dressing room, all to have a connection with the children's room. This also suggests a misogynistic side to the adjacencies. On the main living floor, although the function of the library is incompatible with the orientation, it is placed so it remains isolated, whereas the boudoir has a direct connection to the main hall, creating a situation of a disturbed retreat. Upon attempting to critique Adolf Loos's Villa Muller, one realizes that in his manifestation of the Romplan, Loos forgets to connect the garden room, that is, the room without a roof, to the rest of the rooms. This renders the residents rather introverted. Other contributing factors to the same are the closed, unresponsive facades in the north and east. They miss potential opportunities in terms of opening up to the garden. The disconnectedness of activities oriented towards the south due to Luce's poor sighting. The orientation of open spaces towards the north, the direction with the least amount of sunlight. Famously against ornamentation, Loos fails to realize the role they play during the process of weathering. And hence, Villa Muller, drawn an endless lens of flat facades, weathers rather quickly and grossly. Discrepancies in the organization of rooms like the master bedroom, dressing rooms, and children's room, along with the boudoir and hall, reveal a rather misogynistic side to Loos as well.